Hello again. Same thing as usual. Just going to talk you through this piece. Same as always. Just giving you an idea of my process and, decisions along the way that I made. This one actually was the idea came first, so I did it. It's more of a lighting study. It's just purely a lighting study with a bit of content that I would be interested in enough to sort of go through with it to the end to render. So I just had the idea of this diagonal light beam kind of illuminating the chalkboard of like a professor's study, or maybe it's like a school, and it's like 5 p.m. Students have left and he's just sketching the lesson for tomorrow on the board. Kind of got this warm glow from the warm diagonal light, kind of slight late afternoon, evening direction. The way I split it up was you could split it up anyway really, but it depends on the composition and the content. But with this one, it made sense to do it by material, because obviously you split the wall up. It's a very flat piece, right? So it's clearly 1 point perspective. It's just purely almost like a character study piece of this guy. All the props in the background, they don't really matter. They're just there to reinforce the story that I'm trying to tell in this one, which is something like old guy staying late, sketching his lessons, messy, really intelligent, Edwardian period or Victorian, kind of anywhere around there, that period character, which is just a personal favourite of mine. So that's those decisions. I split up the so I got the background, the wall in the background, and then I split up obviously the chalkboard, because that was a big focus piece. The papers are obviously all separate, and the floor as well, the character of course, but also I split up the brass. I split up the brass from the chalk, just because it's a different material and light would affect it in a different way, and it's not an even surface, and there's you could get a lot more clarity in there. So what I'm doing there on the rim is just creating a bounce light, because all these objects affected by the light is quite a bright light, it's quite a high value. It's a really strong sunbeam. So these things, the brass will be bouncing, and the chalkboard will be bouncing, and the light will be bouncing off the chalkboard onto the character, and then back against the chalkboard. So there's a lot to be broken up there, and you have to remind yourself of stuff like that. So carrying on with the render here, adding in the details. Again, it's all about that light. So I'm just reinforcing that, getting details of the brass in, making sure the light's hitting the character the right way. Eventually I can get rid of the line art once I feel that I have all the detail from it that I need. Sometimes I merge the line art if it was a flat piece, but this one wasn't. It was built up of quite a few layers, because I wanted depth in there regardless of how flat the perspective was, just because it'll be a really quick piece otherwise, and if the detail's there, you might as well render it, right? Depends if it's just a quick concept or a portfolio piece. The writing on the chalkboard, that was fun. So I got a value that I thought was appropriate. Sketched out the writing. It's like pseudo English writing. They're not actually words. That's not necessary for the story here. The speed of the piece. And then I kind of shrunk the value. I use I have a flat shape layer that's the exact shape of the sunbeam, so that anytime I wanted to affect any of the layers area dependent on whether it's in light or in that light or out of that light. I can just go onto that layer, either select or inverse selection in the shadow area, and then go back to the layer that it's on and paint like that. That just gives it a lot more clarity and ease with selection, so you're not messing up your values or anything like that. Detailing on the books, like I like to do. There's books in almost every one of my pieces. If I can get them in there, I just like a pile of books, don't I? I'm thinking about the light as well. When things are in shadow, so like you still, depending on the material, you're still going to get a lot of light from that. You got to think of like the floor, the brass, everything that's within that light becomes a light source, so that that kind of bounces, it's not the primary light source, but it becomes a light source, a smaller one, and that's how bounce light works. It kind of like lights an object and that lights something else, and over it bounces around and gets less and less powerful, and light sort of diminishes. So but you still got to think about that area of the image is so bright that even the stuff in the shadows is going to be illuminated to some degree, because that's how it works, and that's how we can see the detail. Because without the light, we can't see any detail at all. So it must be, it must be lit at least a little bit. Just getting detail in the writing. So I'll work on the character a little bit. Again, it's not my forte, characters, but anyone who's going to be watching this is, or looking at this image is going to be a human. So we need something to, we need some sort of anthropomorphic, relative in the scene to relate to it. Otherwise, I mean, you could do it with you do it with any sort of character, really. You could do it with animals, shapes, Studio Ghibli, fancy creatures that just have two dots and a line. It reads as a face, and we could empathise with that. But even those characters are difficult for me, so I just I stick to very simple stuff. Visual development artists, generally they work on environments anyway, so it's not really our thing. You got to get a bit of character in there to kind of really ground the piece. Yeah, starting to just add the textures in. I think I work a lot on the brass off the recording for the final image, just because it's tedious detail, and you can watch me render brass anytime, so you don't need to see that, and a lot of the other kind of exterior details, really. But the piece is basically there. It's done everything I needed to do. Got the bounce light in there. I got the material. It was a material lighting test, and I think it kind of it serves its purpose. Just from that, yeah, really, I'm fairly happy with it. It's fairly simple. Again, 1 point perspective. Everything sucks into the center of the screen. An easy read of quite a quick piece as well. Yeah, it wasn't intended to be a portfolio piece per se. Otherwise, I would have rendered it out a little bit more. It's just a little character study that lends itself to one of the worlds I'm creating. So it's consistent with that. So it makes me happy. Getting some rim light on the character, making the colours bounce. Just reinforcing the light. Everything in this piece was just about reinforcing the light, apart from the odd decorative piece that reinforces the story. But the light should reinforce the story as well. So I kind of made it warm, inviting. This old guy is not a harsh, hostile character. He's kind of even though you can't see his face, he's warm and inviting, just because the environment he lives in is a little bit messy, but it's not hostile. and there's a lot of oranges, and yeah, that lighting really helps add the warmth. So yeah, coming to the end here, I'm just adding again details and details. Constantly thinking about the light though, because the second you start adding detail and deviating away from the main purpose, is more time your viewer's going to be deviating from what you're trying to tell him and what you're trying to show him or her. So that's that. And there it is, with the brass detail and a little bit of smoke coming out of his pipe, coffee on the right side. I hope you liked it. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.